Well, next up is Community Share, where we sit down and have a chat with another brilliant member of our PlayStation community. For today's guest, we have actress, model, and cosplayer Brianna Lamb, a.k.a. the Lady Nerd, here to have a chat with us about her Lara Croft cosplay from Tomb Raider. Brianna, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi.
How's it going?
How are you guys?
We're doing great. Thank you so much. We're just going to go ahead, actually, and just fire things off. We obviously see you are all ready to go. Your Tomb Raider cosplay is fantastic.
Yep.
So
Amazing.
what
Thank
was one of the things that helped inspire you to get to where you are today? Like, what's one of your earliest gaming memories?
Oh gosh, well my earliest gaming memories was constantly stealing the controller from my friend so that I could play Sonic, because I was so much better at getting those rings than he was. But I was probably 4 or 5 when that happened. And then Tomb Raider 2, actually.
Was it a leap from Sonic pretty much straight onto Tomb Raider?
Yeah, it was about the same for me, mainly because I actually was not allowed to have a video game console when I was growing up, because my parents wanted to foster my creativity and didn't want me hiding behind a computer screen or a video game screen. But they're like, you're welcome to go over your friends' houses and play all you want.
You're like, getting mixed messages, Mom and Dad. What's going on here?
Yeah, but it was good because we'd keep that balance between, going and playing in the backyard and being like, all right, I'm going to play Tomb Raider on the screen over here, and then I'm going to go play Tomb Raider outside.
So fewer T-Rexes in the backyard, though.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
true.
the trampoline was always the lava pit.
I'm just amused that like your parents like, oh, but not too much gaming because you need to be able to release your creative outlet. And now here you are like killing it with amazing cosplay, which is a gaming related, creative outlet.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have to give my parents some credit though, because they also knew, because I did storyboard for 10 years, and my dad used to work in 80s and 90s animation, and my mom did screenwriting for that as well. So my parents are also very creative, so I knew it wasn't like that, kind of put down appearance of, well, we don't like this thing called video games.
Right, yep. So that's kind of interesting here. I'm actually going to take kind of a interesting side path to talk more about sort of your other artistic background as well. But you mentioned you have some time in storyboarding and everything. We actually spent some time digging through your Instagram because it's amazing, which we'll plug that at the end of the show. Please, everyone else, go look. But it looks like you've got a really incredibly divergent set of skills that are coming together. Obviously you've got your video game knowledge and everything, but your acting, your modeling, and everything. Like, it seems to really be able to lend itself to making the most out of these characters.
Yeah, I like to, my tagline is, I'm a Jill of all trades, master of Jack.
I love it.
That's really good. That's a really good Twitter bio, actually. So out of curiosity, so with things like your other artistic skills, like storyboarding and everything, was there anything that you used to kind of help contribute to your cosplay? Was it just sort of honing those artistic?
All of it.
Yeah.
It was really all of it, because it's one of those things, like, I don't know where it starts, because they all just kind of blend together.
Let's start with
what
was the first costume you did?
More than.
Oh no, I was gonna say, what was the? Let's start with one of the first cosplays you did. Actually, out of curiosity, like, what was one of the first ones you decided to put together? We're putting you on the spot.
Oh gosh, I just had to remember back.
Yeah, exactly. For those out there watching too right now, the Lady Nerd here has an incredibly deep roster of outstanding cosplays and outfits and everything she's put together. We're lucky enough to have.
The costume I ever did was a fawn for a short film that I was doing in college.
That's awesome.
But as far as actual cosplay of known characters.
Yeah. Like, what would you say was your start?
Padme from Revenge of the Sith. I went to go into the theater in costume. I had the pillow under my thrown together Mustafar closet cosplay.
That's outstanding. So from there, then what led you to Tomb Raider today? Then obviously, I'm sure we're glossing over a lot of outstanding cosplay, but here today, obviously we're lucky enough to have you in your Rise of the Tomb Raider cosplay and everything, which is outstanding. We just had some of the pictures running.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was a butt ton of fun, and it took actually a long time to put it together for how deceptively easy it is.
Right.
For certain pieces like my boots, I had to order from England because they don't make good Timberland tall lace-up boots around here.
That's actually true. I've looked.
So
it's actually true.
It's a thing. And I've gone hiking for 15 hours. The shoot that I did in this costume was a 15-hour long, awesome adventure, and I was hiking all up and down Cloudland Canyon in these boots, so they're worth it.
That's funny.
But what got me to Tomb Raider, since I've always had a lifelong love of Lara Croft, but I had that kind of insecurity of like, well, I don't look like, classic Lara Croft. I didn't have the face, I just didn't, and that's just me being ridiculous.
Sure.
And then I saw the concept art for the new one, and I was like, hold on. And I remember my mom was looking over my shoulder and goes, did they draw you? That looks like you.
Yeah.
I'm flattered. I don't think it's exact, but I was very flattered. And as more promo images started coming out and realizing she was a younger version, I was like, I can do this. I can finally be Tomb Raider. Yes. So then I already started on this costume way before the game ever actually came out.
Yeah.
And I started a thread on the Replica Prop forum back in the day, probably 2011, I think is when I started this thing.
Oh my.
And like trying to like piece together things from the tiny little trailer screen caps we had, or like the one or two promo images, and try to base it all from there.
So obviously, when you first saw the new younger Tomb Raider and everything, there was a lot about that was cool. But what else about the character would you say drew you to maybe go out and actually? Because the thing is, it's not. I feel one of the coolest things about cosplay is it's not just dressing up, but you really become the character when you're part of this process.
I mean, and definitely with like the photos we've been seeing, like you can see how much like emotion and of the character that you are putting into these shots. It's not that you're just showing up in costume, like you are showing up and becoming Lara Croft in these photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I identify a lot with Lara Croft ever since I first saw the games and started playing them, because there wasn't a lot of female characters at that time. In the early and mid 90s, that we could relate to if you really like things like, I'm a big fan of Indiana Jones, and there's that obvious connection. So I was like, well, done, here she is, we're good. And then it's just kind of developed from there throughout the years, because I've always been into things like martial arts and adventuring, and I would always be that little voice in the back of my head being like, I'm gonna go tightrope across this thing because I'm Lara Croft. I'm not, but I'm gonna do it. And
your parents are just getting more and more terrified and terrified. Yeah.
Well, see, I would just do it when they weren't looking.
Even better, yes. Okay, that echoes the conversation we were talking about earlier.
No, but I totally relate to that. I remember, so in the first Tomb Raider, there's like a side room where you can like practice all your leaps and jumps. And like, I wanted nothing more than to build that room in my house so that I could do that.
I broke my neck in that a lot.
Right?
I broke my neck in that room a lot, unfortunately.
I forgot you could break your neck.
You didn't realize I think, wasn't there like an empty pool or something in there? Sorry, I digress. That's not important right now. So you mentioned too, though.
No, I feel you on the breaking necks. That's like, even in the new game.
Oh.
It took me forever to get through the 2013 Tomb Raider, because I just kept dying and dying. And those stupid wolves.
Deaths are harrowing too.
Oh, like they are hard.
They make sure you died.
You died, and she died when you died.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, one thing too, I remember you mentioned earlier that was really cool was you mentioned this cosplay was easy but deceptively so, right? So what would you say was the most difficult part of putting together this cosplay?
Sourcing the boots and making these things.
That's right.
Yeah.
We just saw a shot, actually. It looks like you made like a whole quiver of arrows homemade.
Yeah. One of my roommates and I did that because I'm all in the ideas, like pre-production and post-production. I'm not as good on production, so I'll fully admit that that flaw. Working on it. But we basically took... I was like, because I don't want to do real arrows, especially for conventions and so on.
Right.
But what can I do in the meantime to get the look of what's in the game? And so we got dowel rods from Home Depot. We painted them with brown acrylic paint. We we got sinew and then these turkey feathers, I think. And although I don't think you can see it, maybe, I hand whittled. And my roommate also hand whittled all of these.
Yeah.
So they're not just straight.
That's actually, it's funny, when you first said dowels, I was like, those look like sticks from your backyard, though. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's an amazing attention to detail.
We came up with a cheat on the arrowhead that's actually leather that we painted.
That's super clever. That is so cool.
Oh, yeah, and then it doesn't violate any weapons.
It looks like an arrowhead, but if you get up here, it doesn't piss anybody off from conventions.
That's important to do.
Yeah, super important. So there were a couple photos that just were flashing by, and you were out in snow, and I have heard from the producers that you actually arranged like a huge shoot in Alaska for that one.
Yes, I plan on writing a blog post about that because that shoot did not go well. So thankfully the shot that worked, actually what you don't see is I'm standing on a cruise ship and my friend is shooting upwards because like from here down is all the people behind me and the railing.
Play shuffleboard and stuff.
I had actually planned to go out to the Mendenhall Glacier in Alaska, and I did. But the problem was because the glaciers are melting so quickly, it was a little dangerous to be up there, and we had to have our safety gear on at all times, so helmet, all the rain gear, everything. So I had my costume underneath, but no photo shoot, and I was feeling awful because, you know, I had hyped up friends and family and followers that I was going to do this, and they're all, you know, waiting on social media, and I'm like, about that. I still had an amazing experience because while I didn't get to do the photo shoot itself,
right.
I did get to actually do some Tomb Raider-esque stuff, and I remember the tour guides were having fun with that because we ended up going into one of the ice caves, which those ice caves are, I believe, what they actually patterned the ice caves in Tomb Raider off of.
That is so
that's
cool.
awesome.
So I was like, I have to go. But because they've melted so much, there's very few spots that you can go into for fear of collapse. But they did take us through one, and the only way to get out of it was on your belly crawling over the water and the ice.
So becoming Tomb Raider at one point before this obviously started to pay off pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. So, speaking of Tomb Raider, have you seen the trailer for Shadow of the Tomb Raider?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Did you see?
Dunn got herself in trouble.
A little bit, yeah. She seems to find her way into trouble pretty regularly. So have you seen that they also, too, Square Enix released a guide and patterns for the actual cosplay?
Oh, yeah, I downloaded that the second it got released.
It's like the moment it released, there's like counter went up to 1 in the millisecond right away, yeah.
Yep, and the Lady Nerd has now downloaded. Done.
So are we going to see a continuation then of your Lara Croft cosplay, you think?
Hopefully. I'm actually working right now on a movie version, so I've been sourcing some of the materials.
That's awesome.
Awesome. All right, and what events can people see you at next? You got any cons you're going to where people can see you in person?
Hopefully Dragon Con, but I work in the film industry, so you never know what our schedule is going to be. So, but hopefully Dragon Con.
And for those people out there that are trying to find you, where can they find your work?
On Instagram and on Facebook, I am The Lady Nerd, and then my website, which is currently a blog, The Lady Nerd, where I show my pictures and adventures and geeky shenanigans and all that jazz.
And everyone out there in chat right now, please, honestly, do yourself a favor. Go out there, check it out. Her Instagram is filled to the brim with just outstanding stuff that's totally worth checking out. So we can't wait to see what you're going to make next. No, honestly, thank you so much for being on.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for having me. This is really awesome.
Absolutely, Brianna. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate your time. Again, everyone, make sure to go out and find Instagram.com/the Lady Nerd as well. I'll pronounce it correctly. She's out there. It's worth your time.
Yes.
Awesome. Brianna, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brianna. Yes,
no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
That was so good. And again, we mostly focused on her Tomb Raider stuff today, but you could see towards the end, we were showing some of her other outfits. They are amazing.
She is Rey.
Yeah,
right?
Oh
Like,
my
it's
God.
amazing.
Like
we
talked about how much she looked like Lara in those pictures, but like how much she looks like Rey is also amazing.